Hey, folks, welcome back to the Testing Psychologist podcast. Good to be back with you. It has been approximately 2 months since the last podcast release. So you may have noticed that it's been a little quiet around here lately. And by quiet, I mean I took a 2-month break. This is totally unplanned, not some big strategic hiatus. And today I am talking all about what happened and some lessons to pull from this experience. The short story is that I just missed my recording day a couple months in a row. But as usual, when these things happen, there are lessons to be learned. And I'm going to be talking through those today. And hopefully, we can all get some value from this experience. So let's get to a little conversation about what happens when things do not go exactly according to plan. All right, everybody, we are back. And like I said in the intro, today we're talking about what would I call this? Accidental mistakes, I suppose. Accidental hiatus. So as I said, I accidentally took a 2-month break over the summer with publishing the podcast. And this is not a grand plan or anything that I did on purpose. I wish that it was, to be honest. I've intended to purposefully take a couple months off over the summer for a couple years now and just have not made it happen. But this was not the year. This was just an accident. And the reason, it's not huge or complex or even that interesting, is just that I missed my recording days 2 months in a row just by coincidence. The first day, actually, let me back up. So bedrock of this whole process is that I batch my podcast recording to essentially one day a month. I block out one day a month, that's 8 or 9 hours, and I go through all of the episodes. I record them, I clean up the interviews, I record the intros, that kind of thing. And in this case, I just happened to miss both of those days, first in June, then in July. And there you have it. Podcasts went off the rails. So once it was because the website was down and myself and my assistant just could not get in to do anything, to publish any podcasts. The second time, it was because I was traveling, and it was one of, I think, many trips this summer, and I just didn't reschedule the recording day. And before I knew it, a few weeks had gone by and I'd missed that month's batched recording day. So no excuses, really. It's just kind of real life, and I guess poor planning in some regards. So, like I said, I hope to turn this into a little bit of a learning opportunity, because if I'm making mistakes, I would love for y'all to at least get some benefit from that, as usual. That's kind of the MO for the podcast. I make mistakes, then I hopefully figure out how to do it better and share some of that with you. So today I'm getting into what this little break taught me about my business and systems and just showing up. Okay, so lesson number 1. Systems are only as strong as the weakest link. So as I said, I usually batch all my recordings for one day a month, which is a fantastic system. It has worked really well now for, I don't know, years, 3-4 years, until it doesn't, right? If something disrupts that one day, I'm kind of out of luck. I just don't have episodes for a few weeks. So it made me realize that even really good systems can fail if there's no backup plan. In our practices, maybe the same thing happens, right? So for a long time, I was doing a schedule where I would do clinical appointments one week, Monday through Friday, just clinical appointments all day. And then the next week, I would do my writing and administrative work all week. So I was quote unquote off for 1 week. So it was a week on, week off schedule. But again, I had a few instances when I was running that schedule where I would be traveling, or the kids would be out of school or sick or whatever, and it would totally disrupt one of those weeks, and then it threw the whole system off. So maybe this is you. Maybe you rely on one admin assistant to send out all of your questionnaires and answer your phones, or maybe you only have one testing kit that, if you misplace it or lose it or something, it halts the whole testing schedule. So the reflection here, I think, is, are there any systems in your business where you are relying too much on a single point of failure? And so for me, the lesson and the takeaway, the action item is that, from this point forward, I am going to build in kind of an emergency day each month. That's one day I'm going to block it off and make sure that I have at least a few hours if I need to do some last minute sort of urgent podcast releasing. Something to think about. Are you relying too much on a single point of failure? Lesson number 2, perfectionism can be sneaky. So part of why I didn't just hop on and record a quick update is because, I got into that thinking pattern of, well, this would not be a real episode. And I didn't want to publish something that was just totally half baked, right? So I think if this had been a little bit more deliberate, I could have coordinated with my assistant and we could have re-released some old episodes that were popular, and that would have been an easy way out. It kind of would have been, a happy medium. But like I said, this was unplanned, and I was traveling a lot, and time just flew by, and I didn't have an opportunity to really structure it or make it clear what we should do. And so she was left kind of hanging out, not having anything to do, and I didn't want to just record something random just to get episodes out. So in hindsight, I think the silence maybe was worse. I haven't heard any feedback from anyone, which is interesting, but I think the silence is typically worse, right? There have been other situations in my life where something like this has happened, and instead of just explaining it and saying what was going on, just kind of kept quiet and made a plan in my mind and knew that it would get back on track eventually. But sometimes a short, imperfect update, I think, is better than nothing. To me, there is a very, very clear parallel to this in our work. So we delay a report or even a phone call or maybe an email because we are waiting for whatever perfect conditions might arise to get this thing done. And we think that that's okay. That's the right course of action, right? Like, hey, we're going to get this done. It's going to be great. And then I'll just send it out. But in the meantime, the person or people who are waiting to hear from us are just waiting to hear from us. So I think the reality is that moving forward with a good enough effort is totally fine to keep the momentum going and at least build some communication in there. So I've been able to translate this into my practice with reports. I typically tell people, hey, it's going to be a couple weeks before your report is ready. And if that changes, and this is actually built into our practice values now, if that changes, the idea is to communicate that. I think people will tolerate a lot as long as communication is clear. And so I'll send an email and just say like, hey, I know I was going to get your report to you within a couple weeks. This came up. I haven't been able to work on it, or I'm gathering this information, and it'll be another 3 days before I can get it finished. I can't think of a time when someone was upset about that. And they often write back and say, thank you so much for being transparent and clear in the communication. So the lesson here again is, rather than get wrapped up in the perfectionism and letting perfect be the enemy of good and going silent, looking back, I would like to have communicated a bit and just pushed out some kind of episode to say, hey, this is what's going on. I'll see you in a month or two. Okay, lesson 3, life happens, and being transparent does build a lot of trust. Okay, so this is kind of the thing that I was just talking about. So, life happens, travel happens, tech issues happen. What I've learned is that most people don't expect perfectionism. They expect honesty, frankly. And like I said, the same is true in practice. So if you're running behind, just tell the client like, hey, I'm sorry, reports are taking an extra week. You can keep their trust. But if you say nothing, they start filling in the gaps with their own story. Okay. So this is me being transparent with all of you. Life got in the way and I simply just fell behind. And I'm very grateful that you are still here. So lesson 4, the power of restarting. All right. One of the best things about the work, I think, is that we always have permission to restart. It doesn't matter if you have been inconsistent or absent or even embarrassed about the whole process. The important thing is to start again, frankly. So for me, that means getting back behind the mic and recording these episodes. For you, maybe it's sending out the overdue reports or emails or invoices or reopening a service line that you've been meaning to offer, maybe a workshop, or maybe just revisiting your marketing after neglecting it for months. So the lesson here is that it's always okay to restart, and in fact, encouraged to restart. It doesn't matter how long you've been gone, you can pick things back up and, combat that inertia of doing nothing. So a few lessons to take from this. Like I said in the beginning, systems are only as strong as their weakest link. So I want you to reflect and see if there are any single points of failure in your practice. Like for me, my single days to batch record once a month. Lesson 2, perfectionism can be sneaky. So, rather than wait until the perfect time or the time when we have the perfect message, just get out there and put something out there, even if it's not absolutely perfect. There is such a thing as good enough to keep the momentum going. Lesson 3, life happens, be transparent. So in the case of our reports, this is just communicating and letting families know when we are delayed, if that happens, and keeping their trust. And then lesson 4 is that you can restart. It doesn't matter how long you've been off. This makes me think of kids that I work with who just stop doing their homework and then, can't pick it back up. It's the same with us. I know once we stop doing something, it's hard to get started again, but you can restart literally any time. Okay, so what is next for the podcast? Episodes are going to be back on track ASAP. I have a number of fantastic interviews that have just been sitting in the hopper while the tech issues were getting figured out. So that's what's going to happen. Over the next few days, we're going to be releasing an episode a day, I think for about a week, and they're all going to be great interviews. So stay tuned and watch your downloads, and just know that you will get Testing Psychologist content for the next week straight. So tons of great guests. I'm excited to share them with you. And then as we get later into September, as we transition into September, the episodes are going to spread out a little bit and get back to the normal schedule. And then toward the end of September, I have what I think is a pretty fantastic AI series coming up where I talk through lots of different aspects of AI, how it's being used, how it's beneficial for our practices, what's not working, training and supervising interns and postdocs with AI, all kinds of things. So there's lots coming up over the next month or two, in addition to ongoing interviews with fantastic guests. So thanks for hanging in there. I hope that all of you had a fantastic summer. I didn't really say much about what I was doing during that whole time, but I did travel a lot this summer. I got to take a couple trips to see my kids and play their sports, which I love to do. We have a son in soccer and a daughter in gymnastics, and we get to travel to watch them do those things. That was a blast. I saw a lot of family, which was really important to me. And then I was out for hosting the 3rd annual Crafted Practice Psychologist Retreat, which was amazing as always. And, I'll have some reflections on that coming up over the next month or two. So it was a fantastic summer. I loved it. And I did not like the little bit of guilt that was hanging around in the back of my mind, knowing that I was not publishing podcasts. So it feels really good to get back and release some episodes. And I look forward to connecting with you all regularly over the next several weeks. All right, everyone. Happy testing.